I just built a new computer for digital art, video editing, and other creative tasks, and today I'm going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at that build. I had three primary goals in mind when creating this build. The first was obviously to create something faster than what I have now so that I can speed up video editing and rendering. I also expected to get a slight boost in my digital art applications like Corel Painter and Photoshop. My second goal was to build a system that was quieter than my previous build, which was not super loud, but noisy enough to where my microphone would pick up the sound of all of my fans. And my third goal was to create a build that ran cooler than my previous build so that my room doesn't get so hot so quickly. With those goals in mind, let's take a look at the parts that I chose. The case I chose is the Phanteks Eclipse P600S, and this build is going to be based on the AMD Ryzen 9 3900X, which has 12 cores. The motherboard I chose is the MSI B550. I also added an M.2 SSD, which is a Corsair Force MP600. I went with the G.Skill Ripjaws DDR4 memory. There's 64 gigabytes of that, and I could add another 64 gigabytes. I chose a Noctua fan, which is ugly but very quiet. And the power supply is an EVGA 750GA 750 watt power supply. All in all, this was about $1,700 to $1,800 with shipping. Now, if you're like, wait a minute, something's missing here, I was able to transfer stuff like my GPU and my drives from my old build to my new build. The GPU I have is still pretty good, so there wasn't really any reason to upgrade that. I was reluctant to build this myself. I have built computers in the past several times, so I do know what I'm doing, but it's like putting anything together, it's not something that you really want to do. An interesting thing about this case is it's designed to be built in a vertical position, so that's why I have my motherboard perched up like that. I really like this case because everything has its own place. For example, the power supply slides into its own little chamber. I also like the cable management in this case. There's little Velcro strips that keep the cables tied down, and you can route everything, and it's all nice and clean. I also chose a modular power supply, meaning that I can plug in only the cables that I need and leave the rest out, so that's just fewer cables to have to deal with. There's plenty of room to mount hard drives. I have several SSDs, M.2 drives, and regular disk drives that I'll be putting in here. This motherboard features heat sinks for the M.2 drives, which keeps them cooler and hopefully leads to less thermal throttling. I'm excited to see how this Ryzen processor works out because I've been using Intel for my last few builds. So far it seems to be working pretty well. I think the worst thing about this build was installing the M.2 drives because the screw is so tiny and hard to get in there, and installing the heatsink on the processor, because I think that was meant to be installed with the computer maybe flat, whereas I had it vertical, and so it was really hard to keep all those parts on there. So here I'm just connecting the minimum parts so that I can make sure that everything's working at this point. As you can see, the motherboard lights up with nice LED lights, which looks pretty cool. At this point, I've spent maybe 3 hours building this computer, and then it took maybe another hour to finish the build. That's not counting installing Windows and then setting up all the applications and stuff. Because I had to take parts out of my old build and put them in the new build, I wasn't able to record that, but I think at this point you get the idea. Here's the build with my GTX 1080 GPU and all of my drives inserted. Did my best to clean the cables up, and I think it looks pretty nice. So as far as meeting my expectations for my goals, performance-wise, it is noticeably faster. It's not rendering videos instantly or making my art applications run in real time. And of course, I didn't expect that it would, but you always hope that when you upgrade, you're going to get this like super awesome performance, and then it's like, it's a little bit faster. But in terms of video editing, a little bit faster is great. That's saving me time. I don't have to sit there and watch choppy video and stuff like that. As far as noise, this build is substantially quieter than my previous build. The case actually features soundproof panels, which block a little bit of the sound, and they are removable if you want to have more airflow. Plus, I chose extra quiet fans for the CPU and power supply. Temperature-wise, it stays pretty cool most of the time. My room is about 5 to 10 degrees cooler, depending on the load on my computer and how long it's been running. The room will eventually get pretty hot, but it just takes longer for that to happen. Overall, I'm happy with this build. If you're interested in checking this out, I don't have affiliate links or anything like that, but I do have a link to the build on Newegg if you want to see all the different parts and how they compare. I hope you enjoyed this bonus review content, and thanks for being a member of this channel.